Willis, thank you for joining us and welcome.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to share our experiences with respect to young people and their roles in peaceful elections. Now, it is my absolute honor to be here today as a representative of the youth voice. My name, as has been said, is Willis Onyango, and I'm the executive director of the Youth Cafe, which is a youth-led, youth-serving, Pan-African, non-profit organization with its regional headquarters here in Nairobi, Kenya. I would like to start from the outset by observing that, considering that about 65% of the population in Kenya consists of young people, it is becoming increasingly more important that rather than seeing this cohort of population as agents of conflict and destruction, they are seen as agents of peace, intercultural and indeed interreligious dialogue, and as advocates for social cohesion in their communities. Now, this comes with its share of challenges. Therefore, enhancing the structures that can promote the participation of young men and women in peace building will have an effect of actively involving them to contribute to their engagement with key decisions and activities that affect their well-being today. This aptly summarizes the Youth Cafe's stance with respect to youth as agents of peace in a democracy such as Kenya. Now, undoubtedly, there is need that we see to generate a culture of peace and conflict-free environment, particularly among the youth. The youth are key agents of peace building, as we note, especially those who have experienced conflict firsthand, such as many young people in Mombasa. These young people have key roles to play in any peace building process, since they most times have a clear vision of what peace might look like when it is achieved in their communities. And not only that, they also have a drive to work towards the realization of these peaceful goals. There has, to my knowledge, no period in history that has not witnessed violent conflict. So this is nothing new. Conflict and violence, however, we see have swallowed up the world as we know it today. But we always see human beings rising above. As we speak, more than 400 million young people between the ages of 15 and 29 live in fragile and conflict-affected contexts across the world, of which Kenya is a contributor to, and the region. This means, therefore, that more than 400 million youth experience violence, they face exploitation, they miss out on education, and they struggle to survive. The past few years have even been more interesting and challenging for everyone. The pandemic we are currently living in has brought with it hurdles that we have never experienced before, as well as aggravated the already existing ones. In the midst of such kind of challenges, we have indeed witnessed young people playing active roles in grassroots at local levels as peacemakers, as mediators, as peace builders under extreme circumstances, and oftentimes under very severe resource constraints. We also see the social media and its rise as a powerful tool to be used in the 21st century. In our relentless march toward an interconnected world. As highlighted in a book that the Youth Cafe has just recently been honored to contribute to under the title Securitizing Youth, Young People's Role in Global Peace and Security Agenda, we discussed the link between digital media and the growing role of personal, political, ethnic, religious, and violent radicalization of youth, in particularly sectarian and political groups. And we note that not learning from and with young people has been a lost opportunity for communities, stakeholders, and the world, particularly given the youth's high and continuously growing use of digital spaces as means of expression. Young people are at the forefront, as we see, to take up social media platforms, to transform communication and to gain influence. Yet, rather than partnering with young people, we have seen key actors tending to be driven by a more preemptive and security-based approaches that are not based on evidence or a commitment to preventive intervention. We, in essence, see the securitization of youth. It is often observed that young people in our communities are increasingly becoming skeptical of our conventional models of democracy as we define it today. But at the same time, they can and do connect and give voice on the issues that matter, using new media, for example, to fight injustice, discrimination, human rights abuses, reviving student activism, and giving a voice to the disempowered, taking into account individual and collective action for what they believe in. The values of freedom of expression, respect for human rights, and the principle of holding periodic and regular, genuine, free and fair elections by universal suffrage are essential elements of a democracy. In turn, democracy provides the natural environment for the protection and the effective realization of human rights. There has to be a clear link between peace and human rights, as has been said, where there is no justice, there will be no peace. At the Youth Cafe, we work on an overarching goal around youth inclusion in democratic processes. And this is in order that we increase the number of informed youth that are participating in key processes, such as elections, particularly general elections, thereby catalyzing important changes in political systems, intergenerational power sharing, or co-leadership, if you want, dynamics, as well as the access to economic opportunities, because most of the drivers of conflict are really economic in nature. Apart from that, we work to increase the participation of particularly marginalized groups of youth, like young women, in representative democracy. Our objectives in this programming on youth inclusion in the democratic spaces would be summarized as including to enhance credible and I must say reliable information that are made available around elections and political processes that are targeted at young people. We also work to increase youth participation in not only current elections, but in later elections through introducing them and where necessary, reintroducing them to the democratic participation, particularly using tools that are already at their disposal, and encouraging them to more actively take part in electoral processes as a key enabler in democratic participation. We work to create long-term evidence-based social media strategies and in-person training curriculum. Our teams actually are currently undergoing a training by the Independent Electoral Commission. And this is to provide comprehensive civic education for youth on democratic processes. And this will then help them to better understand the democratic and civil rights and their roles as well as responsibilities in it. We see that developing educational approaches on voting rights, for example, the role of youth in peaceful elections through advocacy campaigns where young people are able to lobby for elections that are violence-free and not manipulated, for example, through misinformation on social media. An example, practical example of our work is the Kenya Youth Manifesto, which we are working to revise for the next coming election, which the Youth Cafe co-authored in collaboration with young people themselves and youth groups, thereby opening, unparalleled doors to interaction that fed into the general democratic scene of the last general election, as well as the upcoming one. And not only that, but also stimulating proposals and transformative solutions that are youth-centered, therefore marking a departure from the past elections. Some of its provisions we were happy to have been adopted by the government, such as a call for free universal secondary schooling, as well as increased allocation to funds that are made available to youth-owned enterprises. It is worth noting that our non-partisan, collaborative, and inclusive writing process of the Kenya Youth Manifesto challenged existing norms in Kenya, and practices with respect to youth engagement, especially during elections, as we have already highlighted that where young people are not engaged, there is a tendency to resort to violence as a means of expression. We remain hopeful because we have faith in our fellow citizens, particularly young people, who believe in the equal worth of all people. More than anyone, we at the Youth Cafe, we have goals and projects that are for young people, designed by young people. And this is an invitation to rebuild the world and to bring about an Africa, a Kenya that reflects the values of its people through hard work, perseverance, and creativity. Thank you.